Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take the sources you share with us and distill them into comprehensive knowledge.
Today, we are stepping onto the dance floor.
And I promise you, this is about so much more than just footwork. We're tracking a really fascinating story of technology, globalization, culture wars, and yes, even kung fu.
It's such a dynamic intersection, and to really set the stage, we have to talk about a figure that many in the dance world will know, Sederick Short.
Right, but what's key here, what our sources really highlight, is where he started. It wasn't with salsa or bachata.
No, not at all. Back in 1984, on Curaçao, he was just a teenager in a merengue show group. Youth Revolution, they were called.
And here's the detail that just tells you everything about how wild this history is. The song they were dancing to was a search tune by a band called Kasaf.
Right there, it just signals how messy and globally influenced this whole evolution is going to be.
Exactly. So our mission today is to unravel the forces behind the evolution of merengue, salsa, and bachata.
And we've pulled together a really rich stack of sources for this. We're looking at personal accounts, academic analysis, dance history, and even these radical new teaching concepts like dance lenga.
Our goal for you is to map out the forces you might not expect. The cultural shifts, the role of commerce, and maybe most surprisingly, the huge influence of consumer tech.
Specifically, the video recorder, the VCR.
We'll end by looking at a radical new learning approach, dance lenga, which is trying to solve some of the huge problems that this history created.
So let's start at the beginning, early 1980s.
Okay, so picture this. A band called Los Kenton does something completely bizarre. They start mixing merengue rhythms with Keolang kung fu moves on stage.
Kung fu and merengue. And it just explodes. This thing called kentamani kicks off.
Suddenly, every popular band is adding these short, super high-energy choreographies to their shows.
And this is where the VCR, the video cassette recorder, becomes a major character in this story.
It's the catalyst. Teenagers see these little choreographies at concerts. They record them at home on their VCRs.
And they start stitching them together, taking these little clips and creating entire shows from them.
That is the technological leap. The VCR essentially put choreography in the hands of the audience.
And that's exactly how the merengue show teams, like the one Sederick Short was in, were born.
Yeah.
It was a total explosion. Merengue just dominated the charts.
Everywhere. From Santo Domingo to New York, you had these huge names like Johnny Ventura, Wilfrido Vargas.
And later, of course, Juan Luis Guerra. But this success, I mean, it had a dark side.
It had a huge negative impact on salsa. The sources all referred to this period as the salsa recession.
A full-blown recession.
Yeah.
Labels like Fania Records, their sales just cratered. All the commercial oxygen was being sucked up by merengue.
The pressure was so intense, even bachata musicians felt it.
Oh, absolutely. They started speeding up their music, adding merengue rhythms to their albums just to stay competitive, just to get sales.
So, okay, if merengue was this massive force, this phenomenon, why did the show style basically vanish from the international scene?
Well, there are a couple of big reasons. First, the music itself changed. It kind of morphed into merengue hip-hop.
Right, like Proyecto Uno or Sandy and Papo.
Exactly.
Mm.
And those sounds then became a huge influence on reggaeton and, funnily enough, on modern Dominican bachata.
And the second reason?
The dance itself it wasn't complex enough. The choreography was short, it was repetitive, and it didn't have the sophisticated partner work that salsa was starting to develop.
And the early salsa organizers, the teachers, they just didn't see it as true folklore.
No, it was often dismissed. It was, the warm-up dance at a congress. It's a stepping stone to the real dance, which was salsa.
But the legacy is still there. You see those steps in Dominican bachata all the time.
All the time. And in Zumba, in animation dance, it's still around.
And we have to mention the final incredible twist on the kung fu connection.
It's my favorite detail in all the sources.
Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee was the Hong Kong Cha-Cha champion.
In 1958.
Yeah.
Which suggests that Los Kenton might have been watching a dance champion for their moves, not a martial artist.
It's just a perfect example of how dance is always borrowing and remixing from everywhere.
So, merengue fades from the international stage. What happens to salsa? Did the recession kill it?
Far from it. Salsa came back with a vengeance. But to understand how, you have to remember that the name salsa itself, meaning sauce, was basically a marketing term.
Yeah, cooked up by Jerry Masucci and Johnny Pacheco from Fania Records way back in '64.
They just needed an umbrella term, a way to package all these distinct Cuban-style son, mambo, cha-cha-to, make them easier to sell.
And they literally started selling records out of the back of a car.
Of course, you had the Fania All-Stars, Celia Cruz, Tito Puente. They made the sound iconic. But after the recession, the industry needed something fresh.
And that fresh thing was salsa romantica, late 80s, early 90s.
And the architect of that was really Mark Anthony. He mastered the art of taking popular ballads, even themes from telenovelas, and remixing them into these massive salsa hits.
It just made the genre so much more accessible to a huge new audience.
And at the same time, the dance itself was changing, fast, in New York.
And here's another unexpected influence: hustle dancers.
Yeah, post-Saturday Night Fever disco dancers. They loved the music, but their way of moving, their count, it didn't quite line up with the traditional Cuban rhythm.
Which created an opening for standardization. And that's where Eddie Torres, the Mambo King, comes in.
He was crucial. He took Cuban mambo, which was much more of a solo thing, and worked with a ballroom dancer, June Liberta, to create a structured partner dance, the Eddie Torres nightclub style.
He's the one who codified the Mambo on Two system.
Exactly. For anyone listening who isn't on the social floor, dancing on two just means your break step happens on the second beat of the music. It gives the dance a totally different feel.
And here's the commercial genius. He named his instructional video Salsa Club Style.
Even though Tito Puente famously said, "Salsa you eat, mambo you dance."
But the commercial name won. That video went global and spread the style everywhere.
And that style was then pushed even further by Albert Torres, no relation, but he was Eddie's student through all these major U.S. competitions.
Okay, but I have to stop you because the sources point out a really surprising detail about the LA style, the on-one style, which is maybe the most common style globally.
Right. Everyone thinks California.
But there's a Dutch connection.
A huge one. The pioneer of LA style, Francisco Vasquez, was directly inspired by the ballroom salsa approach of two Dutch dancers, Anchi Riel and Marlon Castillo.
So he took their structure and mixed it with West Coast swing, mambo, and even Mexican quebradita.
It's never a pure source, it's always a melting pot.
So when did this all get locked in? When did these styles become the standard?
The first World Salsa Congress in Puerto Rico in 1997. That was the moment.
It cemented the crossbody lead as the fundamental move.
And it cemented the Eddie Torres Mambo on 2 as the international standard. Then the European Salsa Festival started up and helped spread the LA on 1 and NY on 2 systems across Europe, replacing a lot of the local styles.
And from there, it just became a huge industry. International stars, theatrical shows.
A big shift in who was teaching, too. Moving from people with deep cultural roots to instructors with more commercial, ballroom, or jazz backgrounds.
Which is why we now use the term Afro-Latin.
Exactly. It's a much better way to describe this broad, constantly mixing foundation of influences. It's global.
Okay, let's pivot to bachata, because this is where the conflict is happening right now. It's fierce.
It is. And it starts with a name. Bachata means party, but it also implies something bad or bitterness.
Música del amargo.
The music of bitterness. And it has a birthday.
One of the few dances that does. May 30th, 1962, Dominican Republic. José Manuel Calderón's Borracho de Amor.
But it started as music from the margins, associated with poverty, bars, brothels.
Yeah, it was really looked down upon, only played on niche radio stations like Radio Guarachita. And because they had no resources, they had to improvise.
So the metal guira replaces the maracas. They bring in electric guitars. And they were even making illegal covers of popular Colombian songs, vallenato and cumbia, just to have material.
So how did this underground music go mainstream?
2 huge waves. The first was 1990, Juan Luis Guerra and Bachata Rosa.
He made it respectable. He mixed it with romantic ballads, poetic lyrics, and suddenly it was an international hit.
And the second wave, the one that broke everything open, was Aventura in 2002.
With Romeo Santos, their hit Obsession.
They mixed it with R&B, rock, hip-hop. They called it urban bachata. And it went so mainstream, they ended up performing for President Obama.
But, and this is critical, the dance came to Europe much, much later.
Right. Sederick Short said that even as late as 2002, at a Congress in Stockholm, the dance was basically unknown.
And once it hit the Congress circuit, it was just an explosion of styles: traditional, urban, moderna, bachatango.
All these fragmented styles. And there were a few key reasons for that wild growth.
Ventura's music was a huge one.
A huge entry point. Then you had people copying the very successful, very commercial Salsa Congress model.
And the pioneers themselves came from all over. Ballroom, Latin competition, not necessarily the folk roots.
Right. And then you have social media, popularity contests driven by shows, workshops, and YouTube views.
Which brings us to today, and Bachata Sensual.
Developed in Spain by Cork and Judith. It's probably the most impactful style of the last decade. But it started a war.
The Bachata War, and it is intense. The Dominican community, the originators, are pushing back hard.
They criticize sensual for being too sexual. Some people call it dry humping. They say it's disrespectful to the culture, too easy and just not real bachata.
There have even been calls to ban it from festivals.
And this all came to a head in 2019, a flashpoint. A Dominican comedian, Danny Perez, was on Dancing with the Stars, Costa Rica.
And he got criticized by the judges for dancing traditional Dominican bachata.
Yes, they told him he should have been dancing the correct style, which they considered to be the European sensual style.
So Perez posts a video response.
A viral video. Millions of views. And he lays it all out. He says, bachata is 100% Dominican. Sensual is a European invention that shouldn't use the name. And Dominicans need to do a better job commercializing their own culture.
And you see technology's role again here. Ataca and La Alemana's viral YouTube video from 2008.
It had this massive unintended consequence. It shifted global attention away from the traditional Dominican styles and toward their more stylized, more accessible approach.
The numbers don't lie. The online views for sensual stars are just orders of magnitude higher than for most Dominican experts.
So the sources suggest a few paths forward. A live and let live mindset, for one.
Maybe a big annual festival in Santo Domingo that celebrates all the styles.
And maybe even patenting the traditional Dominican dance forms to protect their cultural and commercial value.
So we've seen evolution driven by VCRs and conflicts driven by YouTube, but this brings us to the core question. Amidst all this, how do you actually teach something like improvisation? How do you teach connection?
That is the exact problem that led to the creation of Dance Lenga. Because the traditional teaching method, which comes from ballroom, uses fixed routines, fixed levels.
Which actually works against improvisation.
It actively hinders it.
Right.
And lenga, as you said, means language in papiamento. Fixed patterns stop the conversation.
So what's the core idea?
Modular partner dancing. The system breaks down these complex patterns into small, manageable building blocks. They're called dance elements.
But just learning the blocks isn't enough, right? That doesn't create flow. What's the secret sauce?
The secret sauce is practicing the transitions. The focus is on how to smoothly glue the blocks together in any order.
How do you practice that?
Using dance loops. These are short, repetitive exercises focused only on the connection between two elements. You're not learning words, you're learning the grammar. How to build a sentence.
It's like Lego blocks for dancing. And you mentioned gamification.
Absolutely. To keep people motivated. Every element is graded, basic, simplified, complex. You can personalize your practice. And it uses gaming principles. Clear goals, visible progress, rewards, all built around something called the MIA principle.
Okay, what's the MIA principle?
Most advanced, yet acceptable. It's that sweet spot. The challenge is hard enough to keep you engaged, but not so hard that you get frustrated and quit.
Let's talk about a concept that seems revolutionary for social dancing, multiplication. How do you get endless variations from one move?
By applying what we call multiplication factors. So you take one base element, and you can, for example, change the tempo, dance it with slows, quicks, or shuffles based on the song's BPM.
Or you can add or remove styling, arm work, head movements.
You can even decouple the style from the music. Do a salsa move to a reggaeton rhythm if the timing works, or you use the music structure.
Right. Dance one way in the chorus, another in the verse. Place a trick right on a big musical accent.
Exactly. You vary the space, the handholds, the contact points. The goal is maximum creativity from a minimum number of building blocks. That's real improvisation.
So how does this modular system fix the real-world problems we've been talking about? Like, what about a class with huge level differences?
It solves it dynamically. A beginner and an advanced student can work on the very same element at the same time. The beginner just practices the basic form in the dance loop.
While the advanced student is applying multiplication factors.
Right. They're working on different timing, adding complex styling, or maybe even switching roles and practicing leading or following, all in the same exercise.
What about those impossible-to-lead show moves that people try on the social floor?
The system makes a clear distinction between what's truly leadable and what's pure choreography. It trains leaders to always adapt back to a leadable base form, so the connection with any partner is successful.
And the style conflicts. The bachata wars.
The whole philosophy is about adapting to your partner and the music above all else. So it naturally encourages you to learn and respect multiple styles, traditional, sensual, whatever, as long as the connection works.
And the sources really emphasize that the system has a bigger goal.
It does. It explicitly aims to combat loneliness, to foster connection, respect, and empathy. It's designed to be inclusive for everyone, regardless of age, body type, or limitations.
So what does this all mean? We've gone from Kung Fu Meringue in the VCR to the commercial standardization of salsa through the heated bachata-style wars and ended with this radical modular idea of dance lenga.
The synthesis, I think, is pretty clear. Dance is a living language, and it's constantly being reshaped by culture, by commerce, by technology, and by the creativity of the dancers themselves.
So does this deep dive into the evolution and into this new way of learning change how you think about or experience these dances?
And here's a final provocative thought for you to take with you. The VCR created the merengue show scene. YouTube and social media fueled the bachata wars. If a system like Dance Lenga gives us the modular building blocks of movement, what does the next technology do to those blocks? AI, VR. What happens when these elements can be combined even more freely across every genre imaginable? Something to think about the next time you step on the dance floor.